Bro, the man, the myth, the legend. The man, the myth, the legend. How are you, man?
Doing good, doing good. How are you?
Dude, so freaking good. I was telling him that we were doing a little tech call earlier, and then every time we chat, we're just down a rabbit hole. We'll talk forever. It's very dangerous.
Yeah. Yeah, it was supposed to be like a 5-minute setup, but we ended up talking for 30 minutes on all sorts of different topics. It was a lot of fun.
They want to know what you had for breakfast so they can sound check.
I don't normally eat breakfast. My breakfast is normally a latte, so that's what I had today.
Oh, you're one of those unhealthy people. That's like my life too. Like we just have coffee, and that's like our first
Right,
half
just
of the day.
coffee like in a IV straight to my vein.
That was my breakfast too. Okay, so we're very similar. We've discovered.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it, dude. Well, freaking. If you do a little intro, I mean, who are you?
Yeah.
I mean, I've personally been playing your games.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy for me. Not to like, not to get you all squirmy, but to give you your flowers, dude.
Yeah.
I knew of you well before you knew who I was, right? I don't know if you remember Tiny Touch Arcade. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yep.
Okay,
Tiny Touch Tails.
yes, if you're in the know, if you're a real gamer, dude, back in the day, there was this thing called Tiny Touch Arcade. There were like this app, an app, I guess, or a website, or what do you call it?
Yeah, I mean, oh yeah, Touch Arcade. Yeah, Touch Arcade. Unfortunately, it actually like closed down, I think, last year, which is sad. But at least for me, they were like the way that I discovered mobile games.
Yes.
And I think one of the first ways I like found people to try out the first Meteorfall game was like on the Touch Arcade forums. It was very popular as developers to like post like your upcoming games and like recruit testers and stuff. And I think probably that's what you're referring to. Probably you discovered the game through Touch Arcade.
Yeah, exactly what you said. That was like, if you were in the know, you knew them because they would go through this mobile market that all you guys say is like, oh, it's mobile, there's garbage there. Well, that's not true. There's a lot of phenomenal work on the mobile platform. Yeah. We have the bro likes, Michael Bro, 868 Hack. Like we have some of the goats like over there. So if you're in the know, right? And so Tiny Touch Arcade. What is it called?
Just Touch Arcade, yeah.
Touch Arcade. I keep saying Tiny. Okay. Touch Arcade.
Yeah.
They would pull out and find these gems and like talk about them, give a place for people to hang out, and it was just a really cool space of like premium. It was like the premium spot for mobile gaming, and they would get you hyped about upcoming games, and they just did a phenomenal job. So I followed them religiously, found Meteorfall. And so I always think back to them and I'm like, okay, thanks to them, discovered all these games. This is well before who I am today, and found Meteorfall. And that's when I fell in love and kind of figured out about your work and stuff. So and I knew nothing about design. I was not who I am today. I was just a gamer, consumer. I just like roguelikes and stuff. You know what I mean? And so, I've been playing your stuff since then, honestly. That's crazy.
That's amazing. I mean, I think, lots of people have streamed the games, but something that I've appreciated about kind of your stream and your work over the years is just shedding light on a lot of these hidden indie gems, which I think has been cool. Like I think it's like one thing to sort of stream a game. It's another to show some love, give something back, like give your feedback and opinions and stuff. So I've definitely appreciated that over the year. It wasn't just like, hey, stream and move on. It's like, hey, this is a cool game. Like, here's some other ideas. Here's how you could improve it. Like, sort of giving me that insight, I think was always something I appreciated.
Damn, I appreciate that so much. Yeah, that's just something that kind of like, obviously we talked about it, but it's just come very organically, right? I realized for being a gamer my whole life, and being around for many releases and many times being let down. We all know what it's like to be excited for a game, and then it finally comes and you're like, wait, what happened here? We were so excited. We're ready to give you the world, right? We're like so excited. We're there day one, and then we play and we're like, wait, what happened? And then what happens is you also see, what happened? And then what happens is you also see a lot of like common denominators where like things you didn't like from other games, then that game did, and you're like, still don't like it. Like the community still doesn't like it. Like durability that's added for no reason, right? Or something like just things And so I realized, I'm like, wait, why would they spend, these big companies spend so much money on these projects? They obviously have to make money back. And they do ideas that like did not, like the fans, the community in these other games already said, we do not like this. And they would do the same thing. And I was like, what is going on here? Like, I keep seeing this happen. Like, oh, are they dumb? Like, why would you do that? And I'm like, wait a second. And it took me years to figure this out. It's like, wait, they don't see it. They're not me. They're not sitting here gaming, playing, digesting. They're locked into work. They're at work. They're creating. They don't know. They don't have time for this, right? They don't have time for that. So it's interesting. And I'm like, wait, they don't have the time. They don't know the culture and the gamer's perspective, and they're in marketing and business, and you know what I mean? And so it was kind of organic. I realized that there was pillars to a good game, and I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. And it was kind of organic, right? In that way.
Yeah.
It's a weird space. Yeah, it's a weird space. It's a weird space. Dude, I would love to, I'm sure the fans here want to hear, how did Meteorfall come to be? How did this universe start? And take it away.
It's a good question. So I started Meteorfall, like the series, back in 2017, and I think the original inspiration for the game was kind of a somewhat obscure game, but sort of one that I think was really important for Meteorfall's design, which was a game called Dream Quest.
Yes, the OG, OG.
Yeah, the OG. I think I don't remember if the Slay the Spire guys have explicitly mentioned Dream Quest as an inspiration, but in my estimation, it sort of
for sure
created like the roguelike kind of card battler genre. So even before Slay the Spire, there was this game called Dream Quest, and I was interested to find a way to sort of distill down Dream Quest into a more accessible format, which is eventually became Meteorfall. The art style is something that I think sort of evolved over time. So in the early days of Meteorfall, like in my head, I imagined a game that was much more kind of traditional fantasy, or World of Warcraft kind of inspired. And then I was just randomly emailing some artists. I checked their portfolio online and found some portfolios that I liked. And emailed this one guy named Evgeny, who he has like a very distinctive style, which I think his style, like, if it's not like he invented a new style for Meteorfall. Like, Meteorfall is his style. I think what's interesting about Evgeny is whereas I'm like more of a traditional gamer, and like I tend to like come up with designs which are like more similar to other games. Evgeny wants to make games that don't look like games. So it's sort of like a I think like a good and healthy creative tension to that sort of gives Meteorfall's distinctive appearance, like how the UI works, like how the icons work, like what the battle looks like, what the characters look like. So I sort of came up with the concept and mechanics for Meteorfall, but I think Evgeny like really came up with the soul of the series, which is the distinctive art style.
That's amazing. I feel like it's iconic at this point, like your art and work, and your guys, you and the artist here.
Yeah.
You look at it and it's just very Meteorfall, right? I think some people say, what is it, Adventure Time? Or some people, I think that's the closest thing I hear. Is it Adventure Time that people say?
Yeah. It's kind of funny. I watch some streams and people are like, oh, it looks like Adventure Time. It looks like Adventure Time, which I think is true. Like, it was certainly an inspiration, for the character designs, especially early on. Like, if you want like a, sort of generic fantasy deck builder, like there's a lot of those out there. And we wanted to make something that would stand out. And one thing I think that's interesting about it too is that, art is like very subjective, and there's a lot of, I think, polarizing opinions about the art as well. So the people who love it really love it, and the people who hate it really hate it. Which I think is fine. I mean, I think it's sort of like in some ways, I think the traditional anime style is kind of like that a little bit. Like, people who love anime like will really dig the anime style, and if you're not into anime, like, you're just gonna be turned off by those games. So
that makes sense.
I think in some ways, like, because the art is such like a bold and iconic sort of look, people sort of self-select if they're into that or not. And yeah, and I think that's fine. I mean, you know, you don't want to, you know, sort of like mislead people about like what type of game it is or anything like that. Like if someone looks at the art and says like, hey, that game's not for me, totally fine. The goal is to really get, you know, the people who are into it, like you really want to hook those people. So that's what we've been focused on.
No, that makes perfect sense, actually. Yeah, with art in general, it's not even this, right? I see it with anything nowadays. They're like, oh, it's this pixel art cheap crap again. And it's like, wait, what? Like, this game is gorgeous. You know how much time went into this? You know? It's...
Yeah.
I believe it also goes back, and we kind of talked about this off stream a little bit, but, you know, especially with my work, I do say some things that could come off as very, like, this guy's a dick, but I think it makes a lot of sense to remember that our consumers don't know anything about game design. They do not. That's the reality of it, right? Like, they don't know. We could teach them. But, and I don't say this in a mean way, because I could say the same thing about me going to learn about anything else, right? Like, when I go to the supermarket, I admit that I don't know about the world of, like, food and what's in our food. I know it's really bad, right? And I know if I studied it and stuff, I would probably be depressed, right? Like, I know that our food is not healthy and it's not good, right? So if I talk to somebody that's very well in the know, it would open my world, because I'm very ignorant to it. I wouldn't be able to get into the details and the nuances and the productions and this and that. So it's really interesting. And so I think it's the same thing that we forget, that we don't have this perfect customer, right? We don't have this, like, they know everything. They don't know how art works. They see pixels, but what they've taught growing up is that fancier graphics go from then Mario 64, and then we went to PS2, and then we went to Xbox, and then we went to, right? Oh my God, look at this 4K. We've taught them that that is good graphics, right? I had to teach myself over time. Oh, what's this indie stuff? Oh, what is Binding of Isaac? Oh, what's Gungeon? Oh, they have freedom to do this stuff. Oh, they're experiment. Right, I taught myself that over time. That takes something. People just, that's not intuitive. But I think we forget that like, you have to learn to appreciate the craftsmanship, or teach it, or help them learn why. Like, why is it really cool, right?
And I think, you know, we've talked about this before, but I think one of the interesting things about game development and just like kind of any art in general is, just as a developer or creator, like how difficult it is to judge your own art and like understand like where you might have blind spots and things like that.
Blind spots.
Blind spots. Yeah. The you know, I posted the you know, this week, you know, an article sort of going into like the first week of Bramble, and like you know, how the launch sort of in terms of sales was below expectations.
Yeah,
and
talk
sort
to
of,
us.
Yeah, doing like a little bit of a post-mortem to understand kind of what happened. Like, why did Bramble, you know, at least in its first week, like perform not as well as the previous games in the series? And like one of the top comments in like a thread I post on Reddit, which I thought was very interesting, is you know, the name Royale in the title sort of immediately conjures up like a battle royale game, like a Fortnite or something. It's like, oh, Royale, it's like a first-person game, and there's or you know, there's some sort of like zone that's, you know, constricting over time, and people sort of have this like preconceived notion about like what Royale is. And you know, sort of by including that word in the title of the game, you know, in the, you know, 500 milliseconds, you know, on Steam, as you're scrolling by the title, you see Royale, you're like, oh, that's a Royale game. So I've sort of communicated something to customers by including that word that I didn't intend to communicate. And that might make people like less likely to click and stuff like that. And so you know, that there's, you know, that's an example of, you know, a blind spot, you know, that I certainly had. You know, I'm obviously aware of the battle royale genre, but didn't really appreciate like the sort of the strong correlation people would have to that word in the title. So something we're actually thinking about for the mobile launch is like, well, you know, the game was, you know, selling a bit below expectation on Steam. It's kind of crazy, but should it have a different name on mobile? And trying to brainstorm, you know, maybe we you know, double down on the Meteorfall name and use like the brand recognition there, and like get rid of Bramble Royale and give it a different subtitle or something. So there's a lot of like wild things we're thinking about, you know, to sort of cover up those blind spots.
It's a hard space to navigate, huh? Like, you would never think And it's interesting, I think you were saying on that blog post that a lot of people were kind of reacting to the idea that that like, yeah, they saw Royale in the name, and so they automatically thought Battle Royale or whatever, just from the outside look of it, was, you know, just seeing the name is enough. I guess it's like people seeing like Rogue in the title now or Survivor in the title now. They think it's a Survivor. That's a Survivor game. It's got taken over. That word has got taken over. And so maybe it's the same. Maybe that's the similar thing here.
Yeah, and I think you know, someone mentioned, you know, doubling down on the Meteorfall brand. Like that's something that you know, I think we definitely messed up a little bit on. Like we sort of did hard mode a little bit where you know, we sort of made, you know, even in like the Steam capsule art, we made, you know, Bramble Royale big and bold, and Meteorfall is sort of like the subtitle. And you know, some of the commentary on the thread on Reddit, which, you know, I kind of intuitively knew, but like, you know, when you're in the weeds, you don't really see it. Which is that like Meteorfall is, you know, it's a cool name on its own. If you want to build name recognition, you can't just keep changing the name. Like, you know, there's a reason that Hollywood does sequels and stuff like that. And you know, I don't want to pump out like generic sequels, but like keeping the name is sort of a primary part of the branding. Like, yeah, that's like a no-brainer thing that, you know, should have got up front in hindsight.
That's so interesting. I guess that, again, I give you guys so much credit as designers, developers, and it's kind of like when people talk about like, oh, as a content creator, you don't realize you're doing like 1,000 different hats and roles, right? Like you have to worry about production and sound. And it's the same thing for you guys. I give you so much credit because, like, yeah, there's the marketing aspect, there's the design aspect, there's so many elements at play. And so it's like, yeah, if we were like some marketing guru, and it's like, yeah, so with the branding, you want to shove that in their face and like show Meteorfall for, you know, like, yeah, there's a lot of perspectives there, so it makes it very hard to catch all of that stuff. I think it also goes back to like why my work was created, not to like plug that, but it's if you look at any other art industry, I think, or anybody that's the GOAT or talented at anything, whether it's film, which is another thing that I love, so I love to talk about film. It's they know they can't catch everything, so they have people there to like have their back because they're smart enough to know. And I feel like we're still very infant in the gaming industry, and so we're not there yet to realize like there is this not solo dev, like little I'm gonna make it myself. Like, no, well, if you fail, then it's just kind of on you because you need to be smart enough to know that you're gonna not see things. You're just not. That's why we get these games on launch and we're like, how did they not catch this? This is terrible. And it's like, well, you're in your own cage. You have blinders on. Like, you know, you're like a horse at the races, right? And I believe that's very much important, and why I especially think the Game Doctor work is going to be the future is just like, you get your car inspected, get your work inspected. You're investing years of your life here, right? LeBron James as a coach, the J.K. Rowling's as an editor. It's not because she sucks. Right. It's just because just to have her back. She's not gonna, the little minute things or the stupid little spelling. She's focused on big things, right? Like, so it's like we need that. I feel like I do really believe wholeheartedly that we need that. That is where we're gonna go eventually, with or without me, right?
I think you know, I remember relatively early on, this was like years ago at this point, but you know, I think I'd approached you like, hey, you know, I'd love to have you come check out like the next Meteorfall game, because you played the first couple and you sort of knew like the mechanics. And I remember watching you stream it, and at this point I'd invested, you know, I don't know, year or two in development, and this was years ago, right? So there's like even years past that, and I think watching you play it was actually quite painful, because like there were you know, sort of the words you said and the analysis you did, that was sort of one thing, but there's a lot that you get out of you know, watching, you know, a content creator like you play a game that is sort of unsaid, like the facial expressions, like the delay in understanding like what's happening, and you know, had I gone to release with that Bramble game, not only would it not have met sales expectations, it would also have launched with, you know, mixed reviews. Like the game just wasn't that good, and I sort of knew that maybe it wasn't that good, but you know, seeing someone else sort of go through it, and then, you know, the sort of the follow-up we had, like I was like, yeah, this design's not working, you know, sunk costs, you gotta move on and change up the design. So you know, I'm really happy, like after those discussions, like, you know, I dramatically changed the direction, went from like 1v1 to more of a team-based mode. Like really rethought the design after that, and yeah, so it was really helpful.
Bro, to give you credit, man, you were so coach. I mean, obviously, naturally for me, and this happened a few times with people that I grew up playing their games. And I remember there was like this very much imposter syndrome going on where it's like, who the hell am I? Right? Like this guy. And so, yeah, right? And so there's like a, who the hell do I think I am? I get very nervous, right? I was like, God, I hope their game is perfect. I don't want to have to say anything negative or bad, right? And I very much dealt with this a few different devs in my time. Orange Pascal or whatever, he makes a lot of, he's been around forever, right? And there's been a lot of times where it's like, oh God, this needs a lot of help, and it's like, God damn, here it goes, they're gonna hate me, right? And
yeah,
I especially think that's why it's like super important, because I got to remember this work is not what SD thinks. It's like, no, this is what the market says, this is what the design says. Like, and so I remember with you, like, you were extremely receptive and coachable, because I don't come in and like, this sucks, be more like that. I would never. That's like, no, but it's like, hey, I see what you're going for here, but this is maybe where it's rough or not delivering, or we've seen this 1,000 times, and just giving you the kind of work around so that you could see it for yourself. And I remember right away you were like, I could just see where this is going to be. I see where this is going now that you reflected it back to me. I see it clearly. I see, right? And I thought that was so powerful, right?
Sure. Yeah, I think it's one that, really important, just, in game dev, but like really, especially any creative endeavor in life, really. You gotta be humble. You have to understand when people give you feedback, like the critical feedback, they're trying to help you, like, and not so many words. I think in sort of the follow-up call we had about the early version of Bramble, like essentially what you were saying was, hey, this design kind of sucks, and you didn't put it like that, but like, that's important feedback to hear, right? Like, if you don't say it, the Steam reviews are going to say it, and that would be very even tragic time to sort of out. And so when you get that feedback, human nature is you have like this visceral reaction, like, hey, I spent a lot of time on this, and like they just don't get it, whatever. But you really have to stay humble and understand where the feedback is coming from. And I think we did a great job, I think, going back and forth and sort of iterating on the design, because you gave that honest feedback.
Dude, I appreciate that. Yeah, and I think that's ultimately the most important thing, is to remember that, especially because we think about like feedback and stuff, so then we think early access, we think the consumers, we think the gamers just posting on forums and stuff and just saying what they want, add online multiplayer, give us more content, right? And what I'm realizing is that's not necessarily, we're so conditioned to that being feedback, but the world of powerful conversation, like, or we can have a conversation and you can see for yourself whether something, wow, I have new tools, right? I remember one of the things we actually talked about, if we want to talk in reality, right? When we earlier talked, I remember trying to tell you about a concept of like open grip, right? I was like, loosen up the grip here. Loosen up the grip, because I remember even with these cards, for instance, like you like had to play this on her. It was very specific, like, play, this is what you do. This is this card. And there was no room to breathe or create. And now I go on the forums and I see people love like the upgrade system where you can like, you could play it on this person because you can't play a dex card now, but you could play it on her to get the, right? It was encouraging it, not forcing it. And I remember like it's these concepts where you go, that makes perfect sense. I can see it differently now, right? And that's what it's about. It's not telling you what to do. It's just guiding you, right? And I think that's so important because you're already so talented. It's just, and that's what it's about, is not that you're not good enough. It's that you're phenomenal. But then with that comes things in your way sometimes where it's like, hey, let's just slide this out of your way. And now you're like off to the races, right? And I remember you came back the next time I played it, and I was like, and I remember telling him like, bro, you cooked, like you went crazy. And I just had to like remove some stuff out of your way, right? Like that's it. Like
I think that was a good concrete example. Like one of the things I struggled with early in the design was I wanted to have this like kind of team concept, and like there's I've seen like lots of implementations of team-based kind of card games, and some of them I feel like fall into this trap that I think you helped me avoid, which is like the fireball card can only be played by the wizard because it's a wizard card, and it can't be played by a warrior. And I think from a thematic standpoint, like I was very tempted to say like, hey, why is the warrior summoning a skeleton? That doesn't make any sense. It should be the necromancer summoning a skeleton, right? But sort of the system that we ended up going with after some discussion with you was like, hey, sure, like the warrior can summon the skeleton. Maybe it doesn't make, complete thematic sense, but like it makes the game a lot more fun. You're not, sort of stuck if like the character you want to play is like disabled, or like the card you want to play, like if that hero's disabled, like you can still play the card. It just makes the game feel better. So sometimes you sort of have to like jettison like some of these, thematic problems and be like, hey, ultimately the game needs to be fun, first and foremost.
Dude, I love that, because I noticed right there, you kind of talk to a thing that I always talk about, so I'm curious your feelings on it. Where, in a way, you just said you sacrificed, like, elegance for gameplay, right? Like, well, this makes thematic sense. This is what makes sense here, so this is what I want to do. But you're like, wait, gameplay. And so there's been a pillar that I've been following for a while, and you always see that the pillar, when it comes to elegance or like this makes sense versus gameplay will always win. Make gameplay the priority. And I see it all the time where they sacrifice for elegance. This makes sense, but the game is worse. And I said, why would you do that? Why are you so stuck on the idea? Not you, but like I see this every day on these games that slide across my desk, and it's like they wanted to make this work because like that's how it would work, right? Like that's like, no, you're making a video game. We forget. And it's so funny because Survivor likes blew up, and people always want like, oh, what's the game doctor take? And I said Survivor, like Vampire Survivor was phenomenal, but we learned all the wrong things. We learned the wrong thing. We did learn like, hey, we can get the bag and people like it and we could just knock these out of the park real quick. But what we didn't learn is it was a beautiful reminder that gameplay is supposed to be fun. Like keyword fun. Like everything is fun. Everything is player forward fun. And it was a beautiful reminder of how simple you can make the design, but if you know how to make it fun, if you know how to make it like arcadey, if you know how to add sound design and visual fidelity, that it's not just about mechanics. And we live in a market today that's like, look at all my mechanics, look at all these cool depth mechanics. What about the fun? And then I click on something and it doesn't even make a sound or something, and it's like, dude, I'm trying to, there is a methodology to making a great game, but like we lost it a long time ago, and Vampire Survivor reminded us we learned all the wrong things. Like what?
I think it's a great example, because if you'd asked me, will Vampire Survivors be successful when I before it launched, and I just looked at it, I would have said no just from a screenshot, just like the graphics, like the graphics are what they are, but it is very fun to play. And so I think it's definitely something for games to keep in mind, like graphics I know very well from Bramble, like sort of all the art illustration, like it is quite expensive, and I think games like Vampire Survivor show like you got to the game has to be fun, and if the game is fun, like people will play it, like regardless of if it's kind of pixel art or something else.
If it's fun, yes, if it's fun, right? Like that's so important. I have a lot of people come to me and they have like these deep design questions, like, oh, this, and then I'm talking with other devs and this, and I said, and sometimes I have to snap them out of it. And I have a couple games, we're working for here, Ground Floor, and sometimes I have to snap them out of it. And I said, the consumer is not going to think about any of this that you're battling and discussing, right? They're not going to notice any of this. So let's get to the point, right? And I have to like kind of bring it back, because we get like so wrapped up, all the design and the methodology here, and there's this design space with this. And I said, they're not going to see any of that. This item is just going to be crap to them, right? They don't know about design. So like what? Like how much weight it lifts and gives the player, like, do you think they're going to think about that? Like, you have to remember that like our gamer, imagine it's the person that comes home after a long day and then jumps on Call of Duty with the boys, right? They don't know anything.
We were chatting a little bit earlier, a little bit about that, like just looking at like market trends and sort of game complexity, and like games that are try hard versus kind of quote unquote smooth brain games, and I think for better or worse, I think Bramble, the design of Bramble, like the aesthetic of Bramble, like how it plays, is a little bit more of a thinky game, and is a bit slower paced than some of the other games out there. And so I think it was an intentional design decision in a lot of ways, like that sort of the Slay the Spire model, where of course Bramble draws some inspiration, but sort of the market from 5 years ago when Crumit came out is not the market today. And so I think you really hit the nail on the head, like people want games I mean, there's a market for kind of like more thinky, methodical games too.
For sure.
But you know, by and large, like people want to like, you know, relax a little bit. Like you know, we were talking about like backpack battles. I've been playing a lot of like the Bazaar, like this auto battler genre. I think is like kind of where the industry's headed. You know, there's still like some big, you know, deck builders out there. We got Slay the Spire coming out. We got Monster Train. So there's still a market for those games, but you know, for every one of those, there's like a dozen of clones that, you know, sort of fall off the So
yeah, we see the like top 4%, 5%. We're like, okay, they're doing it, let's be like them. But what we don't realize is there's hundreds that fail under them all the time.
Yeah,
right? Like, and the way I say it in my chat always jokes is everyone's trying to be him, they're him, but we're that guy. We're my game, right? I'm gonna be like them. And it's like, yo, there's so much you still have to like learn and run into, right? Like you don't know why. I see like people like mimic Slay the Spire maps or whatever nowadays. That's like hotcakes, right? But they don't know why it's even there or what makes it good or how to deliver information. They don't. I can't look in my deck, right? Like they're trying to sprint, but they don't have the basics, right? Like they don't have the. I call it fundamentals. Our fundamentals are never there. I played Haste, which is like super popular. This like running game that just came out. It's like super hot right now, and it's like, bro, they didn't let me look in my deck. Like they were hanging out in chat, and I got to the deck part, and I'm like, wait, I can't look in my deck here, and they like left chat. They're like, and I'm like, bro, but like, like they're
notes,
yeah. It's like what happened? So yeah, I also just think it takes a lot of fundamentals to be there, right? It's not just look at the successful game and copy it. It's like you really have to understand what made it great and like what did they run into, I guess.
And I think, you know, one of the lessons I talked about in like the, you know, postmortem I did on the Bramble launch as well is like, you know, sort of the danger of like having your game appear to be similar to other games, even if you've sort of changed, you know, some elements of it to, you know, be new and fresh and innovative. And so, you know, we were talking about how, you know, there's a lot. I think if you compare, you know, a run of Bramble, or sort of like the gameplay of Bramble to like the gameplay of Slay the Spire, and you sort of like really get into it, like they don't really feel that similar to each other in a lot of ways. However, like you know, what players see on Steam is they see you know, a game with like units on both sides and numbers over their head, and you know that sort of communicates through the visual language, like, hey, this is a Slay the Spire. You know, I think in hindsight, like, you know, part of what I tried to do with Bramble is to make something that looked a little bit more mainstream. Like Clement was always like kind of a weird game to explain to people, and like how it works is like a little bit complicated. My thought was that making something that looks more like what I thought the market wants, you know, it could hit, you know, sort of a new high in terms of fans. But I think what I found in the postmortem is like, yeah, it's a very saturated market. Like people don't necessarily want another Slay the Spire. They want something new. They want something fresh. And it's not enough to just do those things, but the game has to communicate that in like the marketing and the screenshot, like in the stream. Like you can do whatever you want with the mechanics, but if it looks the same, then people might not take the time to fully appreciate the mechanics. So I think a lesson I learned in the other game and for the next game is like, how do I better communicate why this game is different?
I love that. In the Game Doctor work, we call that the window shopping effect. I love to say. I say here, this is what I'm getting from your window shopping effect. Like, let's check it. And I say, hey, I'm in the mall, right? And I'm walking past your store, and I look in this window. What do you want to tell me, right? Like, what is it? Are you telling me you're another deck builder? Are you telling me what's special about your game? What are you selling me here? And I think a lot of times we don't do that great. We'll watch a trailer and be like, what are they trying to get across here? What is it? Or is it just another one? They don't really hit like what's special. I had another client making a deck builder actually. They're working on and I heard a lot of people talk great about it. Starlight Abyss.
Oh yeah,
what is it called? Yeah. And I remember at one point they tried to explain to me what they're going for after our call, after our talk, and they're like, yeah, but we're trying to, because like the intent system and this and that. And I said, tell them that. You're telling me, yeah, that sounds amazing, but you gotta show me that, right? Like they want to do an intent system, but it's not like they're gonna do this. It's they're intending to do this, literally. So you can like stop them from what they're intending. And I'm like, that is so cute. And you can play on that. Like they're used to intent systems. So if you play off that and say, hey, these people are intending to do this and take it literally and stuff, they're gonna love that. It's like, but you have to tell, like you're telling me now after hours and hours, no, you start like, you guys need to get in front. This is your identity. This is what makes you special, right? And I think it goes back to that, the window shopping effect. Really put in front of them, hey, this is what's cool here. This is why it's cool.
Cool. Hey, I need to run. Actually,
yes.
This was super fun. I would love to do another chat like this. Like, you know, you and I think could talk for hours about like game dev, like the whole experience.
Dude, I feel like we ran for hours every time. Dude, oh my god. Well, dude, in closing, man, I just want to thank you for being like, dude, I wanted to tell you earlier, actually, like you pioneer. Like, I don't remember like coming from Meteorfall, which was so original at the time, this kind of like swiping, like almost Tinder swiping deck builder. And then if you think about it, years later, we had like Devolver make a version of it with like, I forgot what, remember? Like you pioneered, you cooked, and then Crummets Tale coming up with like deck building, but then you had sliding tiles and adjacencies and stuff. Like you're a pioneer of the industry. And it was really funny. Like Bramble's like your most normal, like your most normal game. So I give you a lot of credit. Like you always cooked and pioneered, and to get a name for yourself and get like a big following, being a pioneer of the industry, I think is just something to kind of commend you for. So keep doing you. Like don't let this get in your head, and just keep being you.
No,
keep being you.
We're gonna do more games. We're doing, we're gonna do the Bramble mobile release. We're gonna do content updates for Bramble. Like, I do this because I love it. I love making games. So yeah, thanks for having me. Big shout out to chat as well. You guys have been really supportive and great over the years, and appreciate all the love and support for Meteorfall. We'll do this again soon.
We'll do it again soon. All right, brother, get out of here. Thank you so much for your time. See ya. Later. Yo, give it up, chat. Give it up. Dude, I told you guys you would like him. How cool is he? How cool is he? I feel like we could just chat for hours with this guy, bro. Hours. He's such like a real dude, you know?